In this video, we're going to have a look at the split toning panel in the develop module to see how those sliders can affect your image. For the purposes of this exercise, we're going to choose this image from the Great Migration as it lends itself perfectly to this kind of edit. Let's click over to the develop module. This is the image we're going to be working with. Now when you open split toning, you'll see there's highlights and shadows. What you're going to be doing and what this allows you to do is you can add a certain color cast to just the highlights and just the shadows. You can do those individually to get up with some very creative results. Before we start, I want to just quickly punch this image a bit so that my darks are darker and my lights are lighter, so that we can try and get more of a visual representation of what split toning does. So to do that, let's click up to the basic panel. I'm just going to take my contrast way up. Might overdo it a bit, but we'll get the idea later on, and my white up. So what we've done now, I've created very dark areas in this image as well as very light areas. So darks and highlights. Let's click back to the split toning panel. What we're going to do now is I want to add a color cast to my highlights. So that means all these white dusty areas around the wildebeest and maybe on these bright spots that are reflecting off them as well. You click on the little gray tab at the top, and now you can select. You can get a visual representation on the left hand side. You can select what color cast you would like to add to the highlights of the image. So let's go for like a yellowy kind of, let's go strong yellow there. Right, when you're done, close that. You can now also, once you've selected your color, you can choose how saturated you want those highlights. Alright, that's the first step. You will notice, however, that even though this affects the highlight, it does add a cast to the entire image, but it is more in favor of the highlights. Next step, same way, shadows. We're going to click on the gray bar. You're going to select the color that you want to apply to the dark areas. So that's the black wildebeest and maybe the background a little bit. So let's choose a blue, for example. Right, let's go with that. And done. So now I've assigned a yellowy browny kind of color to my highlights and a blue, almost purple color to my shadows. Again, you can change the saturation of this down at the bottom here. Let's take them both up to max and see what happens. This is the perfect example now. Remember, this might not be my final goal, but I can now see which areas are affected by my yellow color cast and which areas are affected by my dark or shadow color cast. From here, you can drop your saturation down. Let's leave them the same, about 40, that's great. And now you can select the balance. You can either make it in favor of just the shadows or just the highlights. So by combining your color, the level of saturation of both highlights and shadows, and the balance, you can come up with some pretty creative results called duotone processing. And yeah, that's really it. This works very well specifically on black and white or monochrome images, but you can also apply this to color images. A little bit more tricky because it throws the entire color balance off, but still worth exploring for some creative results.